It's the year 2074, and the world as we know it is gone. Climate disasters have scorched the earth, crops have failed, and famine and chaos have caused governments to collapse. In their place, massive corporations now rule, controlling nearly everything and everyone. Those lucky enough to work for the corporations live in protected green zones. The scene shifts to Spiga, a biotech corporation, where two employees chat casually about work until the elevator doors slide open. Armed security men march in, dragging a fellow Spiga employee with a hood over his head. The man is being taken to face Julian, Spiga's head of security, and everyone knows what that means: pain, silence, and probably a mysterious disappearance. We are then taken to 3 days earlier, where a rising executive at Spiga named Ben Larson has breakfast with his wife, Laura. She's a surgeon at Spiga's Renascent Cosmetic Design. The news shows reports of rising sea levels and bad crops. Then suddenly, a bomb explodes at Spiga's Jakarta plant. After breakfast, Ben rides to work in his self-driving car and arrives at the company gates, where security is tight as always. Just then, one employee is stopped for something suspicious in his bag. Everyone tenses up as it might be serious. But when they check it, it's only a video of a woman eating real food passionately. Ben and his boss, Chad Peterson, meet with Julian, the cold, no-nonsense head of Spiga Security, to brief him on a powerful new piece of software called Everclear. Designed to peer into the human mind, it can decode thoughts and even dreams visually. In theory, it could revolutionize interrogations and easily identify traitors. However, in practice, it's still flawed, only about 65% accurate when subjects are awake and drop to 55% during sleep. Julian isn't impressed and tells them to work 110% harder. Far from the shiny towers of the Green Zone, a thief named Theo is caught by Terrence, a local crime boss, for selling real tobacco, a rare and valuable item in this world. But instead of punishment, Terrence is impressed by Theo's fighting skills and offers him a chance at more than just survival. Back in the Green Zone, Ben sits alone in his office. He pulls out an old, worn photograph of a woman and quietly runs a facial recognition scan. The woman, Alina, appears to be working as an escort in an elite corporate retreat known as Arcadia. It is a luxurious and secretive pleasure resort for executives, located in Milwaukee. As Ben stares at the screen, a memory flashes back. Turns out, he isn't really Ben Larson. He's Aaron, a former Red Zone resident who assumed a new identity and climbed his way into the corporate world, not for power, but for love. Alina was everything to him. She vanished years ago, and since then, Aaron has risked everything to find her. Although he's close, Arcadia is beyond his current authority. To reach Alina, he needs access, and to get that, he needs to climb higher. That means he needs to get promoted soon. That night at dinner, Laura tells Ben that Spiga has lifted their birth control restriction. They've received the rare permit to try for a child, something only granted to top-level employees. She's genuinely happy, and Ben also puts on a smile and acts supportive. But inside, he's already plotting how to prevent it. The next day, Ben visits the top floor of Spiga, where he meets with the CEO Elizabeth, who is also his mother-in-law. She asks about Laura, and we learn that her relationship with her daughter is estranged. Meanwhile, Laura is at work at a high-end plastic surgery clinic. One of her patients, a wealthy woman, wants a Red Zone man to be surgically altered to look like her deceased husband. In return, the man gets a new life in the Green Zone. Later, after a brief phone call with Ben, Laura suffers a panic attack. This is when memories from a past trauma resurface. She cuts herself to deal with the stress, but the injury is quickly healed by a spray-on medical treatment. During lunch hour, Ben meets with a mysterious man and shares that he's located Alina, his lost love. The man warns him to stay low and avoid attention, but Ben is determined to take chances to find his girl. That evening, Ben joins his co-workers on a trip to the Red Zone for drinks and distraction. At a rundown bar, they watch a brutal cage fight while others get high on a street drug. Ben pretends to join in but avoids taking any himself. Later, when Chad gets sick in the bathroom from drinking too much, Ben discreetly takes a blood sample from him. Then, he heads up to the 18th floor to see Theo, Alina's brother, one of the few people who still knows who he really is. Since getting caught selling cigarettes in the gang-controlled territory, Theo's been training as a cage fighter to survive. Ben then shares the real reason for his visit. He thinks he's found Alina, but she's in a high-security executive club. He'll need a promotion to get access. Theo warns him not to lose himself in the process. Ben promises he just needs time and leaves. The next morning, Ben gets his hands on an anti-riot device called the Whistler. It emits a high-frequency sound that causes immediate nausea. At the office, he visits Chad and then discreetly triggers the device. Chad quickly excuses himself to the bathroom, dizzy and sick. While he's gone, Ben uses the stolen blood sample to unlock Chad's system and downloads restricted files linked to Alina onto a portable drive. At the end of the day, Spiga employees line up for the usual security check before leaving. Ben's plan kicks in as Chad is stopped for carrying high-level files out of the building. Turns out, Ben plans to frame him and get a promotion in his place. Security moves fast and drags Chad to face Julian the same moment we saw at the show's beginning. With Chad out of the picture, Ben clears the path for a promotion and gets one step closer to Alina. But there's still one more major obstacle: Roger, his ruthless and ambitious co-worker. A flashback then takes us to Ben's past, back when he was still Aaron. He was just a clever teenager trying to survive the harsh realities of a refugee camp after his father's suicide. Life there was brutal, but Ben was tech-savvy from the beginning. He built a reverse retinal scanner that tricked the system into giving him extra food. That kind of skill didn't go unnoticed. A man named Reed, the same mysterious man Ben met a while ago, saw potential in him, and the two formed a partnership to run small tech scams to stay alive. 12 years later, Reed is now Jonathan Hendrick, working in human resources at Spiga. Other than Theo, he remains one of only 2 people who know Ben's real identity. Moreover, it was in that same camp where Ben met Alina, the girl who changed everything. They were inseparable until one day, her aunt sponsored her and her father to move out to the Red Zone. Before leaving, she gave Ben a necklace strung with her late mother's ring. Back in the present, Chad is being interrogated by Julian. He insists he knows nothing about the stolen files or the security breach. Under pressure, Chad starts naming names, including Ben. He claims it was Ben's idea to party in the Red Zone, where they also ran into executives from Spiga's top rival, Inazagi. Later, Julian's security team uncovers that Ben had recently checked out the Whistler, the anti-riot device he secretly used to incapacitate Chad to steal files from his computer. When questioned, Ben quickly deflects and claims it was Chad's idea. He doesn't know why, just that Chad had him sign it out. But before Julian can follow up with Chad, his memories are wiped clean under the orders of Elizabeth. He remembers nothing, not the files, not the Red Zone trip, not even his name. As Spiga's CEO, Elizabeth wants the entire incident closed quietly, worried it might trigger panic among investors if it gets out. Back in the Red Zone, Theo's reputation as a cage fighter is on the rise. After winning a couple of matches, he and his boyfriend, Anthony, sit down to enjoy steaks, a rare treat in the Red Zone. Just then, Terrence shows up with the news a major talent scout is coming to town, one who arranges fights in the Green Zone. Theo agrees to show what he can do, although Anthony is worried that it might be dangerous. Before a fight, Theo approaches his opponent Said, a massive, intimidating fighter. But Said isn't what Theo expects. He's friendly, even respectful, saying the violence is all part of the show, and there's no reason for them to be enemies outside the cage. During the fight, the two opponents get into a brutal brawl. Said inhales an energizing drug, giving him the upper hand in the first half of the match. Theo then uses a steak bone as a weapon to slash Said's face and take the win by slamming him against the floor. When Theo unexpectedly emerges victorious, the crowd bursts in celebration. However, it is short-lived. Terrence, ever the manipulator, reveals that the talent scout wasn't there for Theo, it was Said they came to see. Now, with Said's loss, his shot at the Green Zone is gone. Things take a dark turn when Terrence suddenly grabs a trophy cup and brutally smashes Said to death. Theo is left shaken by what he just witnessed. Terrence then says Theo is his new ticket to the Green Zone while smirking at his new prize fighter. Back in the Green Zone, Ben returns to the conference room where he had planted the surveillance tech that has the classified files in it. He had kept there to avoid security during his interrogation with Julian. But to his shock, the device is gone. It's a small but crucial piece of evidence that could expose him. What's worse is, it's now in the hands of his rival, Roger. It turns out Roger saw Ben plant the device and quietly took it when the room was empty. The scene cuts to Inazagi, where corporate loyalty starts young. Kids are shown a creepy educational cartoon with an equally eerie message. If you hear something yucky, tell Officer Bucky. The message is clear: if mom or dad say anything bad about the corporation, report them. Watching this unfold is Diana Walters, Inazagi's senior VP of Global Resources and a soon-to-be mom. The cartoon shakes her and she doesn't want her child growing up as just another corporate tool. So, she decides to switch sides to Spiga, Inazagi's biggest competitor. During a secret meeting inside a bathroom, Diana shares key intel with Elizabeth. Inazagi is developing a breakthrough seed capable of growing crops in deserts. If successful, it could crush all competition. Elizabeth is immediately interested in bringing Diana on board. But in 2074, defecting from one megacorp to another isn't as easy as handing in a resignation letter. Worse, the corp has planted a virus on Diana's body, which activates in case she decides to leave the company. To pull off the defection process, they'll need to fake Diana's death and provide Inazagi with a believable body. Ben then steps in with a solution. His contact, Jonathan Hendrick, informs him that one of the escorts at Arcadia, the Executive Pleasure Club, was recently shot while trying to escape. That body could be used in the swap. Ben, haunted by the thought that the victim might be Alina, brings this information to Elizabeth and Julian, who begin planning the operation. In the next scene, a negotiation meeting on a collaborative project is held between Spiga and Inazagi. During this time, Diana is quietly poisoned, causing her to have seizures. Ben rushes her to the medic room through the elevator, where Julian is already present with the dead body of the escort. He then slowly revives Diana's body and swaps it with the dead escort. By the time the elevator doors open on the first floor, Inazagi representatives are handed what they believe is Diana's body. Although they pull off the plan seamlessly, the dead escort had been surgically altered to resemble Diana before Ben could see her face. So, he doesn't know if she was Alina. Searching her belongings, he finds something chilling, the same ring Alina gave him back when they first met in the relocation camp. It's the ring he gave back to her years later in the Red Zone, when they reunited. This was just before she was pushed into an intensive cram school program designed to break students for the sake of corporate scholarships. Fearing the worst, Ben brings the ring to Theo and shares the news that Alina might be gone. But when Theo holds the ring, something unexpected happens. It scans his DNA and triggers a hidden message from Alina. She had given the ring to a colleague as part of an escape plan just in case she didn't make it. Thankfully, it is revealed that Alina is still alive. Meanwhile, Ben's rival Roger struggles to unlock the tech he stole from Ben. Frustrated, he turns to Ramona, a legendary hacker from the Red Zone. She agrees to create a skeleton key, but not for cash. Instead, Ramona wants a show. She demands Roger catch and eat a rat. Surprisingly, Roger accepts the challenge because he is desperate to uncover Ben's secret and destroy him. After pulling off the gritty stunt, Ramona hands him the program to crack the tech. When Roger later unlocks it with the program, he finds the files inside, which expose Ben's secret surveillance on Alina. Roger grins proudly and then coughs up some rat fur. The scene shifts to a flashback when Alina's hopes for a better future come crashing down. Rebecca Hansen, a Spiga educational outreach recruiter, delivers harsh news informing Alina that she had lost her scholarship. But there's a silver lining. Spiga wants her to work as an escort at their exclusive executive clubs. Alina's father sees through the lies. He pulls a gun and aims at Rebecca. Thankfully, Ben steps in just in time to stop the situation from escalating any further. Determined to make a future for them both, Ben then asks young Theo to assist him with a hacking job that promises them a big payout. They go to the market and hack the exchange rate machine by raising the price of euros and exchanging them with dollars. In the next scene, Ben visits Alina's father's diner and brings her $20,000, the buy-in money to be used for work on the cooperative farms. It's tough, honest labor, but at least they'll be together and free in the open air. However, Alina surprises him by saying that she's been offered the scholarship after the original winner was caught cheating. Before they can talk further, their diner is suddenly hit by a drive-by shooting. Unfortunately, everything happens so fast that flames burst out, and the $20,000 cash burns up in the fire. Back in the present, Aaron, now living as Ben, is wrestling with the idea of having a child with Laura. Desperate, he asks Hendrik to get him some birth control, which in this future comes in the form of Listerine-like breath strips that dissolve on your skin. But Hendrik warns Ben he has bigger problems looming. Roger, Ben's rival, is determined to snag the promotion and he plans to take Ben down to get it. He's obsessed with the mysterious woman Ben's been tracking using the stolen tech. Roger asks Hendrik, who works in HR for Alina's personnel file. Although he receives it, it's so heavily obscured that it reveals almost nothing. Unknowingly, opening the file downloads a tracking app onto Roger's phone, which is directly monitored by Ben. Ben then starts watching Roger closely. Meanwhile, Roger strikes a deal with his powerful father, George Kaplan. If George helps him get access to Alina, Roger will convince his mentally challenged brother Mitchell to leave their family estate and enter treatment at Windrush Center. Mitchell, once implanted with a neural device that damaged his emotional center, now spends his days in a perfectly kept room, quietly reciting math formulas and folding origami cranes. Roger talks about their shared hatred toward their father, and Mitchell agrees to seek help if it means Roger can earn the promotion and banish their father along with his trophy wife and bioengineered baby to the Red Zone. Back at Spiga, Elizabeth meets with Diana Walters, the Inazagi defector who's been given a new face and identity as part of her relocation package. For her part, Diana reveals more valuable intelligence she learned at her firm. There is a young scientist named Sanjay Maharaj, who has developed a way to make crops salt-tolerant, meaning they can grow using seawater, an abundant resource worldwide. If Spiga can harness this tech, they could dominate agriculture in the deserts and crush Inazagi's hold on the market. In the meantime, Ben continues to monitor Roger's every move. He tracks him to the Excelsior Hotel, where he's stunned to see Alina, dressed elegantly and surrounded by Spiga's security. She's heading to meet Roger, and this meeting could be the moment that exposes Ben's entire operation. A flashback reveals Alina's father Gustavo's diner burning to the ground. Worse still, the fire department refuses to put out the blaze because Gustavo is behind on his bills. Gustavo then blames Ben for the attack, saying local crime boss Tino said it as revenge for Ben's $20,000 hacking score, money that's now nothing but ashes. Days later, Gustavo is thrown into debtor's prison, where he's sick and near death from pneumonia. With no other options, Alina accepts the offer to become an escort at Spiga's executive clubs. It means selling her body and soul, but it also means paying off her family's debts and getting her father out of jail. Ben is understandably devastated to learn this. Before leaving, Alina tells him that if he truly loves her, he should forget her. Heartbroken, Ben drowns his sorrows at a bar, where he runs into an old friend from the relocation camp, Reed, who has now taken a new identity as Hendrik. Ben calls him out in an alley, amazed that Reed has somehow managed his way into the green zone. Taking a new identity as Hendrik, Reed has a family now and fears Spiga discovering his past. Ben promises to keep Hendrik's secret if Hendrik will help him find a way to get into the green zone. With his help, Aaron becomes Ben Larson, leading us to the present day. Meanwhile, at the Excelsior Hotel, Alina meets Roger in his suite. He pressures her for details about her past. She mentions her father owned a restaurant in Franklin Heights. When he brings up Ben Larson, she claims she's never heard the name. Frustrated, Roger threatens her with a corkscrew. Unbeknownst to him, Ben has been listening in from the floor below. He hacks into the hotel's air purification system, triggering alarms and forcing an evacuation. Alina is quickly taken away by Spiga security, but Ben can't follow her as he's already late for his Everclear presentation back at the office. Following up on his investigation, Roger meets Ashley, the administrator of the local school that Alina had attended a while ago. He bribes her into getting contact information for Alina's father, Gustavo. Next, Roger calls Gustavo with heartbreaking news, falsely claiming that his daughter is dead and to collect the full death benefit. He must meet Roger later that day. When Gustavo arrives at the location, Roger shows him a photo of Ben. Gustavo instantly recognizes him as the piece of shit who ruined his daughter's life. After giving his presentation, Ben sets off tracking Roger via the locator app. Their confrontation takes place at Gustavo's old, burned-down restaurant. Roger reveals he knows everything. Left with no choice, Ben offers a deal he'll persuade Elizabeth to give Roger the promotion if he keeps quiet. Roger appears to agree, but when they shake hands, Ben spots that Roger's been recording the entire conversation. Soon, a fight breaks out, and during the struggle, Ben strangles Roger to death. He then calls Theo to help dispose of the body. They load Roger into his self-driving car and program it to head south into the dust storm states where the car will be stripped, and the body will become unrecognizable after turning up the heater inside. Later, Ben comes home exhausted and burns his bloodied clothes in the incinerator, tends to his wounds, and climbs into bed with Laura. She curls up against him as he lies awake, lost in thoughts about his life built on lies and how it all spiraled this far. The scene shifts to the year 2066. 18-year-old Laura is getting ready for a wild night out with friends. She's trying to have fun at a club, but the two bodyguards her mother, Elizabeth, sent to watch her are killing the vibe. So, Laura slips outside and starts making out with a guy named Bradley. Moments later, Bradley knocks her out and takes her to a rundown apartment where he lives with his sister Kim, their mother Sally, and a young nephew. Turns out that kidnapping girls from the Green Zone is a family gig. Bradley demands a ransom of 50,000 black coins from Elizabeth. Fortunately, Laura gives them a fake name and hides her true identity as the daughter of a powerful Spiga executive. Back at Spiga, Julian assumes this is just a low-level kidnapping. But Spiga's head of security, Connor, wants to follow standard protocol, pay the ransom under containment recovery, which rarely ends well for the hostage. Fearing the consequences, Elizabeth refuses to pay. Then, Bradley responds by cutting off Laura's ear. Things take a darker turn when Sally spots a newspaper photo of Elizabeth Strauss, the same woman in the locket Laura is wearing. Suddenly, they realize just who their hostage really is, and that she's worth far more than 50,000. Bradley then sends a recording of Laura being tortured to Elizabeth and ups the ransom to $5 million. He threatens to turn Laura over to Inazadi if the money isn't delivered. Under pressure, Elizabeth agrees to pay, but she knows what this usually triggers. Connor then activates the containment recovery protocol, Spiga's brutal method of tying up loose ends after a ransom deal. But Elizabeth has already made her own move. She sent Julian ahead, quietly and unofficially, in hopes of saving Laura before the system does what it always does: eliminate the witness. Thankfully, Julian tracks the apartment through 2 dirty cops and deploys a drone to locate Laura. He listens in on the kidnappers speaking with a man named Jimmy, who warns them what's coming. Spiga doesn't leave witnesses. The company pays and then erases everyone involved to protect its secrets. Their only shot at survival is making Spiga believe Laura's already dead. Meanwhile, Laura manages to reach the scalpel used to mutilate her and cuts herself free. When Kim returns, Laura attacks without hesitation and stabs her in the throat. Bradley rushes in with a gun, ready to shoot, but Julian bursts in just in time and kills him with a shot to the head. Julian then leads Laura into the living room, where they find a young nephew crying beside the bodies of his loved ones. Moments later, Connor and his Spiga security team arrive on the scene. Back at Spiga, Laura, shaken and furious, confronts her mother. She now believes her father's death wasn't an accident, but a result of Spiga's containment recovery protocol. As Laura is sent off for medical treatment, Julian tells Elizabeth she should have been honest with her daughter. Elizabeth replies it's better that Laura resents her than the memory of her father. Julian then reminds Elizabeth of their deal. He expected a transfer to Sioux Falls after bringing Laura back alive. But with Connor rising in the ranks, Elizabeth says her hands are tied. Instead, Julian is offered Connor's job, that is, head of corporate security. The promotion is exactly what he didn't want. At the clinic, Dr. Hines treats Laura's wounds with a healing spray that seals her cuts instantly. And that's when Laura knew that it was time to leave her old life behind. She would become a doctor. In the present day, Laura makes it safely into the red zone to visit her former housekeeper, Rachel. She wants to check on a sick little girl. Meanwhile, Ben, worn down and desperate, hands Roger's watch to Theo. Theo heads to a bar and tries to trade the watch for drinks, but it's just a setup. 2 Inazagi agents nearby take notice and buy the watch, which is exactly what Ben wants. After this, Theo returns to his work in the brutal world of cage fighting and faces a new opponent, Yaroslav, a massive, genetically enhanced fighter backed by a smug Inazagi executive named Lionel. Terrence, ever confident in his prizefighter, gives Theo a dose of rage powder, a performance-enhancing drug, to secure the win. It works too well as Theo goes into a violent madness, severely beating Yaroslav. After the match, it takes one of Terrence's women to calm him down before he spirals completely out of control. Elsewhere, Laura checks in on the sick girl in Rachel's building. The surgery done by a local back alley doctor was decent, but the wound is now infected. Laura treats it with a quick dose of healing spray, expecting to head home until more sick residents begin lining up. That's when Goran, the local enforcer who oversees the area's underground dealings, shows up. He brings Laura to his base and surprises her with an offer. He wants her to set up a small clinic in his space and treat people in the neighborhood. At first, Laura hesitates, but the chance to do real good kicks in her. After all, helping those in need feels a lot more meaningful than catering to the ego of Green Zone elites. Meanwhile, Ben finishes fine-tuning the Everclear device, the mind-reading tech he's been developing. He tests it on himself and then confesses the truth about Roger's death to Hendrik. Not long after, Roger's smartwatch is reactivated by the Inazagi agents who bought it from Theo. Julian now believes Roger has switched sides, which means Inazagi likely knows about Spiga's secret recruitment of Diana Walters and their plan to extract Sanjay Maharaj, the scientist working on salt-tolerant crops. Since there's no time, they need to move Maharaj immediately, and Ben, with his Everclear tech, is their best shot at pulling it off. In the next scene, Julian kidnaps Philip Brill, an Inazagi executive who happens to know where Sanjay Maharaj is being held. Then connects Brill to the Everclear device, and with some careful prompting, uncovers the location, which is a cold storage facility in Whitehorse, deep in the Yukon territory. But they've got a problem. Brill's disappearance will tip off Inazagi if he doesn't check in soon. To buy time, Ben wipes Brill's memory of the interrogation using the NDA helmet, the device used to wipe the mind clean. After Brill is dumped in the Green Zone, Spiga can now track Maharaj's location through drone surveillance and plan the extraction. Meanwhile, Julian gets his hands on the tech Roger stole from Ben. Turns out, Roger's decomposing body has been discovered in Missouri. Julian suspects foul play from within Spiga and requests permission from Elizabeth to use Everclear to interrogate the whole department, to which she agrees. Later, Ben learns that access to his own Everclear project has been revoked. So, he realizes Julian knows Roger is dead, and that he's about to be questioned. There's only one way to hide the truth, that is, erase his own memory of the murder. Ben then turns to Hendrik for help. The plan is to wipe out the part of him that remembers everything, including his true identity, his past, and even the murder. In short, erase Aaron for good. In the meantime, Theo's fast new lifestyle is spiraling out of control. He's constantly high or drunk, and his relationship with his boyfriend Anthony is falling apart. One night, Theo demands 2 hits of rage powder before his match. His opponent dominates at first, but once the drug kicks in, Theo unleashes a brutal assault, beating the man to death in front of a roaring crowd. Terrence is thrilled, but Theo, coming down from the high, is horrified at what he's done. Meanwhile, Hendrik completes Ben's risky request. The Aaron side of Ben's mind, his memories, identity, and the guilt of killing Roger are extracted and stored on a neural drive. At the scene, they find Roger's collar pin. Unfortunately, the area lacks security cameras or satellite feeds, leaving them without visual proof of what happened. But Ben finds a nearby weather station, and with his tech skills, he analyzes wind and acoustic data to recreate a 3D simulation of the crime scene. Only the irony is that Ben's unknowingly helping solve a murder he committed himself. But without Aaron's memories, he is actually better. He's more focused on his personal life and spends quality time with Laura. He stops taking his birth control and genuinely wants to raise a family with her. He even surprises her with a night off and a romantic gift, a ring that just so happens to look almost exactly like the one Alina once wore. Meanwhile, Hendrik notices the change and sees his chance to make it permanent. He decides to delete the neural drive that contains Aaron's persona. But before he can, a hidden failsafe kicks in, and a message from Ben warning that if Aaron isn't restored within 72 hours, Hendrik's real identity will be exposed to Spiga pops up. While in the red zone, Julian stops by to see an old friend, Goran, the local enforcer who once recruited Laura to run a neighborhood clinic. The two used to serve in the military together, though their paths diverged. Goran stayed on the ground, while Julian climbed the corporate ladder. Julian now asks Goran for help in investigating Roger's murder, and Goran agrees. Meanwhile, Laura's clinic is up and running. She even brings in her former housekeeper, Rachel, to help manage the place. Their first patient is a boy with a failing black market artificial heart. The device can't be rebooted remotely, so Laura does the procedure by hand and pulls it off flawlessly. It's the first time in a long while she feels like a real doctor, saving lives instead of serving the plastic pleasures of elites in the green zone. Elsewhere, Julian calls Ben for an update on the weather-based 3D reconstruction of Roger's murder scene. Just as Ben completes the simulation, the rendered image reveals something chilling: Ben himself carrying Roger's dead body. He stares at the screen, stunned and horrified, with no memory of ever doing it. He then runs facial recognition of another person in the video and identifies him as Theo, a rising cage fighter, someone Ben no longer remembers since his Aaron persona was erased. Confused and determined, Ben tracks Theo down in the red zone. Theo tries to convince Ben of their shared past, but even the video of Alina fails to revive Ben's memory. Interestingly, the ring Theo uses to project Alina's hidden message does it's the same style of ring Ben recently gave to Laura. Ben also recognizes a man in the background of an old photo of him, and Alina in the red zone. It's Hendrik, the HR officer at work, formerly known as Reed. Following the GPS address found in his car, Ben and Theo head to Hendrik's hideout in Franklin Heights. Along the way, they encounter Chad Peterson, the former Spiga employee Ben framed for stealing company tech. Chad is in rough shape but immediately recognizes Ben as the man who destroyed his life. He attacks, but luckily Ben has Theo by his side. Ben and Theo then track down Hendrik, who hands over the portable drive containing Aaron's neural imprint but warns Ben not to reactivate it. He argues that Ben is a happily married man with a good life, while Aaron is a dangerous liar and killer. Theo disagrees, saying Ben is a facade, and Alina needs Aaron's help to escape Arcadia. Shocked and confused, Ben leaves with the drive and warns Theo that if he comes near him again, he'll destroy the neural imprint and end it all. However, after a romantic night with Laura, Ben decides to restore his Aaron persona. The next morning, he's ready to restart his plan to save Alina, but fully aware he doesn't deserve a wife like Laura. Later at work, Ben shares the wind contour analysis with Julian, which, thanks to his manipulation, points to Chad Peterson as Roger's killer. He protects Theo by saying that the accomplice remains unknown since their back was turned to the wind. Julian remains skeptical since Chad's memory was wiped by NDA tech, but Ben insists that some memories refuse to stay buried. In the meantime, Hendrik's daughter Hazel accidentally finds hidden tech beneath the kitchen floorboards during a game of hide and seek. Back at Spiga, tensions are rising as Elizabeth faces the harshest challenge yet. Her plan to rescue Sanjay Maharaj is met with fierce Inazagi retaliation. This forces her to order a drone strike that destroys everything, including Spiga's extraction team, Maharaj, and the surrounding area. Elizabeth's ruthless stance is clear: if Spiga can't control Maharaj, no one will. Her main goal is to keep the shareholders satisfied by not letting the shares fall due to her incompetence in dealing with Inazagi. While the chairman praises Elizabeth for making the tough call, her rival David Gates is outraged. Julian is also dissatisfied with Elizabeth's decision to risk humanity for the sake of the company's shares in the market. Sharing the same sentiment, Julian and Gates secretly plot Elizabeth's removal. Julian agrees to help him remove Elizabeth, but only if he's granted a transfer to Sioux Falls. Gates agrees and also reveals that Julian's transfer request for the same Sioux Falls from 8 years ago was never processed because Elizabeth deliberately blocked it. Julian is now more than determined to get back on the CEO of Spiga. In the red zone, Laura is becoming increasingly disillusioned with her work at the new clinic. Supplies like nanosutures and other essential surgical materials have been mysteriously disappearing from the cabinet, which is likely stolen by smugglers or desperate locals. Worse, the shortage leads to a patient dying during treatment. The harsh realities of life in the red zone hit harder when another patient confronts Laura. He demands she replace the hormone inhibitor she removed from his stomach. He explains that without it, his growth will no longer be stunted, and as he starts to look his actual age, he won't be able to make money anymore by attracting rich perverts who prefer to sleep with little boys. The situation becomes too much for Laura when Elizabeth unexpectedly pays her a visit. Her mother tells her that she is putting herself in danger by spending so much time in the red zone, and warns that she's just setting herself up for another kidnapping. Elizabeth then reveals a devastating truth, that Laura had never known her father was not kidnapped as she had believed. Instead, he attempted to defect from Spiga, and Elizabeth herself ordered his execution. Laura is understandably horrified and forced to contemplate the dark reality of her family's past. Elizabeth then gives her a difficult ultimatum. Laura must shut down the clinic immediately, or Elizabeth will take matters into her own hands and do it for her. Elsewhere in the red zone, Theo visits a memorial for Bowie, the cage fighter he recently killed while under the influence of rage powder. There, he meets Bowie's sister, a nun at a nearby monastery, who forgives him for what happened. Overwhelmed with guilt, Theo breaks down in her arms. Afterward, he returns to his apartment, ready to pack up and escape. But Terrence is waiting for him, upset that Theo's been skipping workouts at the gym. Terrence reveals Theo has been booked for a green zone fight, and makes it clear that quitting is not an option because no one walks away from him. The following day, Ben gets called to meet Elizabeth, who informs him he's been promoted to the 40th floor. Now part of upper high executives, Ben gains access to exclusive executive clubs like Arcadia, which finally gives him a chance to reach Alina. But when he gets home at night, something seems strange. Suddenly, he's knocked out by unknown attackers. When he wakes up, Ben finds himself being held captive by an Inazagi commando team. Tobias, the leader, demands the Everclear program from him. Even when Tobias threatens Laura with a gun, Ben refuses to give up Spiga's secrets. Consequently, Tobias brutally murders Laura right before his eyes. But it was all a test, a simulation designed to examine Ben's loyalty to Spiga. Elizabeth is satisfied with his resolve, despite the emotional toll of witnessing her own daughter's death. Now, Ben officially joins the 40th floor of Spiga as Senior VP of Counterintelligence Tech. Yet Ben has no intention of staying put. He wants out and he plans to take Alina with him. He approaches Philip Brill, the Inazagi executive who accidentally revealed Sanjay Maharaj's location. He offers Brill the Everclear program in exchange for the safe extraction of 2 people. Brill agrees because there'll be a fat bonus for him in Inazagi. That evening, Ben visits Arcadia for the first time and meets Alina in a private room. But instead of warmth, he's met with coldness and disappointment. Alina is shocked by everything Ben has done to reach her, especially his marriage to another woman. She tells him to have a happy life and forget about her. Although heartbroken, Ben is determined to win her back. Meanwhile, Alina has her own agenda. She is secretly allied with one of Arcadia's maids. The maid's plan is to manipulate Ben, whom she sees as a useful pawn in their long-standing revenge against the corporate suits who have exploited them both. The maid urges Alina to play along with Ben's affections. After all, he could be handy. Back home, Ben gets an unexpected visit from Hendrik, who is now on the run. The tech his daughter Hazel discovered hidden under the floorboards contained sensitive information about Hendrik's past. Hazel took it to school, where her teacher confiscated it, and it was only a matter of time before the authorities started digging. Hendrik is devastated to leave Hazel behind but can't risk taking her behind the wall. Ben then tries to reassure him that Spiga will find her a safe place. With a heavy heart, Hendrik says goodbye and disappears into the night. Shortly after, Ben calls Brill and insists they speed up the extraction. When they meet at the rendezvous point, Brill is stunned to see that the two people being extracted aren't Ben and Alina but Hendrik and Hazel. After ensuring that they are safely extracted, Ben visits Alina at Arcadia. He apologizes for missing their earlier chance to escape, but explains that his new position in Spiga gives him access to powerful technology and information he can use to secure their safe exit. Alina welcomes him warmly and promises that the right time and circumstances will come for their escape. They share an intimate reunion as they make love for the first time in 6 years. Meanwhile, in the Red Zone, Julian and his Spiga team locate Chad Peterson. Elsewhere, Laura discovers that Gabe, the young man whose life she saved by rebooting his mechanical heart, has been stealing nanosutures and other supplies. She locks him in the supply closet and informs Goran, who expects her to handle the situation alone, and warns her never to show weakness in the Red Zone. Determined to make the clinic succeed, Laura takes this seriously and has Gabe's hand chopped off as a warning to others who might steal. Laura then shows up unannounced at her mother's office and declares that Elizabeth will have to shut down the clinic over her dead body. Elizabeth is impressed and maybe even proud. He says he has a connection to Spiga through a man named Ben Larson. With blackmail and manipulation, Terrence can profit much from Theo's connection to Ben. Terrence, ever the businessman, is intrigued and spares them both. In the meantime, Ben and Laura settle into their new, upscale home as part of the promotion. The scene then shifts to Terrence staring at a photo of Ben, Alina sharing a secretive glance with the maid at Arcadia, and Laura receiving confirmation that she's pregnant. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.